Good evening. Let's call to order the Tuesday, June 20th meeting of the Urbana Human Relations Commission. May we have a roll call, please?
Asako Kanazi-Leggett.
Here.
Peter Resnick.
Here.
Greg Schroeder.
Here.
Ann Panthen.
Here.
Julie Robinson Schaefer.
Here.
Stacy Burnett.
Thank you. We do have quorum, so we will move on to our introduction of a new member.
Well, I would like the board to welcome Ann Panthen to the board. Ann, do you want to tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Let's see, I work at the Urbana Free Library in the archives. I also work in other areas of the library, but mainly in the archives. I've been there about 6 years. But prior to that, I was the deputy director at METCAD, the 911 Center, for about 35 years. So the library is a lot different and much better for my mental health than working at the 911 Center. So I'm glad to be here. I have applied for a couple different boards, and there have, due to my public safety background, there were problems with each one because I just didn't, I wasn't separated enough from that. So I was really glad when the mayor called and said, maybe we have a spot for you, and I've been interested in getting involved in I don't know, in government again, I guess. I was also on the Douglas Branch Library Board at one point, or commission, I guess it was then, and the Mahomet Public Library Board. So I've done a few different board stints, and I really enjoy it. I like to be involved. I like to know what's going on, and I have time, and I want to be helpful. So there you go.
Thank you. Welcome. Okay, so we will move on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Pete and second by Greg. So moved. Any discussion? None? Okay, now we need the voice vote. Sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now it's approved. All right, moving on to approval of minutes. Any motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any edits or corrections that need to be made? None? All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, minutes approved. Moving forward. Public participation. I am seeing no public participation this evening, so we will move on to unfinished business. Public hearing case number UC 2022-PH1, an update. Is that you, Carla, I believe? Or?
You all should have received the order of dismissal for the case and also a copy of the settlement agreement between both parties. And so we are asking for approval of the dismissal, the order of dismissal.
So I had a couple of questions before we approve the order. Overall, looked pretty good. My main concern was actually, and I mentioned this to Dave Westner, and I wanted to confirm, Section 3 of the agreement between the parties says that the respondent is not going to be held liable for any and all things, and it was at least ambiguous to me when I first read it whether it was anything with regard to what they did in this particular case or anything that they did during the period of time in question. And so I just wanted to confirm that they are just the settlement is just if they have all of the issues with regard to this particular case are the ones that are being dismissed. Is that correct?
That is correct. The only cases that this will impact is case 2022-02 and 2022 PH1. Those are the only ones that this is in regards to.
So if, for instance, someone came to us and said, hey, 2 months ago, this thing happened to me that was separate from those, not the same complainant, that person would get investigated and it would be a different case.
Yeah, that would be considered a new case.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted to confirm. The other issue that I had a concern about was simply, well, first of all, ask a simple question, but I presume I know the answer to this given that there's an order of dismissal, which is we believe that given the settlement that was made, that we're convinced that the respondent is not going to be participate in any further discrimination, if any, because of course they deny that they did in this particular case, but that the settlement is sufficient that we're satisfied that this is a fair outcome for all involved.
Yes, I believe in the settlement, they talk about they will adhere to all human rights, the human rights ordinance and everything that's within the human rights ordinance.
And so my last question is, I know in the ordinance we're required within a year of one of these conciliation agreements to assure that it's been followed. How are we going to do that in a year?
Well, after a year, after, barring any other complaints that they may have, this would be outside of the complaints if they had one. We could go back and we can review, we can request records, we can review rental records, and we can check to see if the protected class that this case was involving, we can see if there's any changes or any complaints or any activity within that protected class. It will be all protected classes, but we would pay particular attention to the protected class of this case.
Good, okay. So your office would take care of that in a year and sort of do a presentation for us?
Yes.
That sounds great. That's all I was looking for.
Okay.
So with Pete's questions addressed, is this now ready to be moved to a vote, a motion? Okay. Does anyone want to make that motion?
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the order of dismissal in case UC 2002 PH1.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So is there any further discussion before we move to a vote? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, sorry.
Can I think for this one, we probably need a roll call vote.
Roll call vote.
Sorry.
Okay. So, Tom, can you do a roll call vote, please?
Asako Kanazi-Leggett.
Yes.
Peter Resnick.
Yes.
Greg Schroeder.
Yes.
Ann Panthen.
Yes.
Julie Robinson Schaefer.
Yes. Motion approved. Thank you, everyone. So the next order on our unfinished business is the 12-22G complaints. These are our report outs. I can start if you guys would like, and I'm trying to remember the number of mine, and I left my bag at home. So I believe it's -02. So I was consulting with Carla earlier today just on kind of getting some guidance on how to proceed, because I guess how much information are we providing? Or is this full information that we're providing in the report out, or?
If we haven't sent it to the mayor, because
Okay.
part of the process is that we would make recommendations
Right.
to the mayor, and that the mayor would have opportunity to.
That's what I wanted to make sure of, that I'm not going to speak out of turn. So mine I will be sending to the mayor this week and providing my recommendation. So I have done my investigation, I've gotten additional guidance, and I'm ready to move forward with my recommendation to the mayor. So that will be going out this week. So who else would like to report out? Asako?
Okay. I have HRC case number 12-22G
052522. I'm in the process, I'm getting some edits from people. I was having technical problems, so I haven't managed to work on it this weekend, but I'll do it this coming weekend.
Thank you. Greg?
I was assigned complaint 12-22G-071322. The report was submitted to the officer and the mayor, and the mayor was pleased to see it resolved.
Great. And did you have a case?
I do have one, and I think I mentioned last meeting that I had meant to send one more request to the reporter for additional information since I haven't gotten a response. I failed to do that this month, so I will do that, and by next month I expect it to be complete.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the updates and the investigative work on all of our parts.
Just a question on that. Are we to discuss the findings and/or recommendations, or what has been sent, and it's on the officer and the mayor to discuss anything further?
I will have to refer to the process that, the bylaws that you guys came up with, because I know it went to the mayor. I know that we have to provide a presentation to the council, and that would be myself and one of the members. So I think we need to put together some type of report, and I believe they can be discussed at that time, but I would want to refer to the bylaws at first, but I believe they can be openly discussed without revealing any personal information.
Thank you. So it sounds like they will be publicly discussed or disclosed at a future council meeting, regardless of what we discuss here. So, okay.
I was looking in the ordinance, and the only question I've got is, do we do a presentation here for everybody so that the commission can sort of agree to it as a whole and then go to city council?
That's why I was wondering about discussion.
That's what I'm saying. I believe we can.
Right. We just have to sort of clean it up so that there's
Yeah.
no personally identifying information of the reporter. You know, or actually, it's any of the. It's to keep as much confidential as possible, but you know, reveal the outcome. So
I believe so. Yeah, and we could do that prior to going to the council.
Thank you. All right, next item of new business, our EEO workforce statistics. So quite a few this month to review. I will very quickly go through the names, and then I will ask for a motion of how we want to move forward with each of them. So we have on this month's list Bradford Systems Corporation, Brorin Russo Builders Incorporated, Carlson Brothers Incorporated, Core Construction, Davis Hope Mechanical, Gewalt, Hamilton Associates, Gilbane Building Company, Golden 5 LLC, Grunlow Construction, KCPS Consulting LLC, Knight & Associates Surveying, Locality Media, also known as First Due, O'Shea Builders, Petrie Kuhn, PJ Hare, RJN Group, SB Friedman Development Advisors, Siemens Industry, USIC Locating Services. I don't believe I missed any. So, does anyone want to put forward a motion for these entities this month?
Are you looking for a motion to,
Should probably describe procedure. I am going to hand that off to the yes, I was going to say those with institutional knowledge on this matter.
So, the section of Urbana City Code about this one, which is 2-119, do I have that right? Something like that, says that for all contractors with the city over a certain amount, which now historically means just about everybody, the Human Relations Commission has to review the contracts to assure that their workforce statistics are in line with them not discriminating. And It doesn't describe the procedure, so we came up with one, which is we review the statistics as the contractors are applying for particular contracts and give them an approval of a certain amount of time. So for folks who we think are conforming and not discriminating based on their workforce statistics, we say they are approved for 2 years, and so every 2 years they would come back for us to reapprove them if they wanted to. For those who we feel like maybe they have not gotten their workforce in line, we approve them for 6 months or 1 year, depending on what we think they can accomplish, and we have the officer send a letter saying, we want to see what you're doing to make good progress in terms of diversifying your workforce. Doesn't mean that the numbers have to come back next time with perfectly wonderful numbers, but that we see that you're making a good faith effort. We also have the option, one that we have to date not used, which is to say we don't approve of the job that you're doing to diversify the workforce, which would in effect be a violation of the contract with the city. And then the city attorney would decide what to do about a violation. Generally speaking, the sending a letter and saying we'd like to see what you're doing to improve things has sufficed. So each month we get a list from staff of contracts that are pending with their workforce statistics, and we go through the list and make a recommendation of usually 2 years, 6 months, or a year with a letter, or not approving. Sometimes we ask to not include certain companies in the motion and get more information before we make our decision.
And I would add that, I'm sorry if I missed it, that if they are, is it under 20? That we typically will go ahead and approve for 2 years because, not always, but just because generally they don't have the workforce numbers to support the same percentages.
And we are also sent the numbers with enough time before the meeting that we are able to respond with questions to our officer and
Yes.
secretary if we want more information or to clarify something.
Okay, so I guess we have no specific motion. Does anyone want to move Carla's recommendations forward?
I'll just share with Ann. What I've done is I've gone through all of the applications. I've given you some of the demographic information that's supplied in the application, but then I go to the area of where the business is located and try to get statistics, demographic statistics about that area and what the workforce pool is.
Oh.
And if there's transportation issues, try to find out, is there public transportation available? What type of transportation? So that we could get an idea of what the workers would look like if they were bringing from, where would they be bringing them from, and and we look at things at how far away they are from, urban cities, or are they in urban cities, that kind of stuff, to get a better idea of the workforce pool.
And you sent that out?
Yes, that goes out with the agenda and
Okay.
sometimes with the agenda, but sometimes a little earlier. It all depends on when I get them done. And there were 18 of these this time, and I tried to stay on top of it. But they generally go out in enough time to give you an opportunity to review the applications and then to look at the recommendations to see if they're in alignment with what you think.
I read every one of the 24 of them, but I did not remember seeing your email about your.
It would have been with Tom's email,
Oh, okay.
but there's a copy for you.
Oh, there's a copy. Thank you.
So one question, which is the KPCS consulting one, which is our weird European Union issue. What did city legal say about this? Because it looks like they're based in the Czech Republic. Because they are based there, their California branch does not collect these statistics?
I believe they said that as a company, they are not allowed to collect that information, no matter where they're located. That's my understanding.
It falls under the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, unfortunately, all too familiar with it. So yes, we would have to, the city would have to enter into a separate agreement with them for them to be able to share that data with us. So it is protected information, so.
So they do collect it, they just don't share it.
My assumption is yes, but they would not be able to share that with us without that agreement in place. And I will tell you that it's a processor agreement and it's not ideal.
And because I was reading the application, and someone helped me because I don't have it in front of me, but I think they specifically said that they weren't allowed to collect that information. And so that's why I said, please see
Right.
their note on why they don't have demographic information.
Sorry,
But I'm not
the California branch would not be
Oh.
allowed to collect it. The
main-
branch in Europe would have that
Okay.
information. So yes, that is correct. The California branch would also have to enter into a processing agreement with them, so.
I guess my question here is, we're in a state where there's nothing really for us to review. So our approval seems weird. You know, we talked last time about the fact that these approvals are not strictly required, right? They've become required by process at the city, but part of that is because the city doesn't want to get into a state where they make a contract and then we look at workforce statistics and say they're not right, and now it's been a breach of contract and now they have to deal with that problem. In this particular case, the city is making a contract with this company where we, in effect, can't know whether they are or are not complying with our law. It seems weird for us to give them an approval I mean, based on what our procedure is look at the numbers and decide what their approval level is. They don't have numbers.
Please.
Well, as they put in their application, the actual wording said, European law prevents collecting this information. But what they did share with us was the percentage of women on their staff.
Right.
So that might be at least one point to consider if, see if it changes from one renewal to the next if it's approved the first time.
I will say now that we have been given a data point, we cannot say they cannot and will not ever provide us with data.
And also, it seems like the policies have been submitted, their sexual harassment and EEO policies. So we do have that information to look at.
So, I'm going to make a motion to approve Bradford Systems for 2 years, Bory and Russo for 1 year with a request for a plan, Carlson Brothers for 2 years, Cora Construction for 2 years, Davis Hoke for 2 years, Gowalt Hamilton for 2 years, Gilbane Building for 2 years, Golden 5 LLC for 2 years, Grunlow Construction for 2 years, Knight and Associates doing business as MAS Engineering for 2 years, and Locality Media for 1 year with a request for a plan. And O'Shea Builders for 1 year with a request for a workforce plan, Petri Kuhn for 1 year with a request for a plan, PJ Horror for 1 year with a request for a plan, RGN Inc. for 2 years, SB Friedman Development for 2 years, Siemens Industry for 2 years, and UCIC locating services for 1 year with the GFE plan. So moved.
Anyone second?
You see what I did there?
I would like to make a friendly amendment. Is that
Can you
after the
second?
second?
It's after the
Second. I would also like to make a friendly amendment. Sorry, just tracking through this list here. For Davis Hook Mechanical, they are union, but they've actually made reverse progress since their last report.
So,
Yes, discussion and then friendly amendment.
let's have a little discussion first, if you don't mind.
Yes.
So Davis Hoke is another one of our union issues, and I think we'll find, if we were to ask them, that Davis Hoke will say, this is what we got from the union this time around, and it is random, and we can ask them as many times as we like, but that's the number. So my inclination, Carla's recommendation was for 2 years for Davis Hoke. We could do it as a year on the basis of its union numbers, and we should do something about that within 1 year, and this will remind us yet again to try and do something about the union issue. But I don't see that it's going to change our opinion very much. I think we should address that separately.
I put the 2 years because we have worked with them extensively to help them work on their good faith efforts, and they have a better understanding of what they're looking at, and they're looking at their workforce in totality, not just the union workers. And they've been very receptive to our advice, and I believe that it will only get better with them because of that we've just had frank conversations with them, and they recognize that, oh, here's some other things that we can be doing, and they promise to do those things. So that's why I said I think a 2-year certification would be warranted because of they are really trying.
Okay. I accept that.
So we have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
Further discussion.
Okay.
Gevalt Hamilton Associates, not union. 87% white and 58% white area, and no minorities assigned to the contract. What is the justification for 2 years on that?
Vernon Hills, Illinois, I believe, might be the justification.
Yeah, their population, I think it's a high-end population. And so there's not a significant percentage of Black, Native American, Asian, well, not Asian, but Hispanic, there's not a high population to draw from. And if they were going to get a larger number of those populations, they would have to come in from other areas.
I did note the travel time to work of 28 minutes, which seems somewhat prohibitive as well.
Yeah, and that's if you're in a car. That's not if you're using public transportation.
Okay, last one. I'm good with the recommendation, but just comment for locality media, doing business as First Do. As they hire remote positions and are non-union, I think that's a foundation for expecting more.
So they had 1 year last time we approved them, and we're doing 1 year again. So we're expecting them to come up with good faith efforts. How was their packet as far as that goes?
Looking at their numbers, they lost 2 minorities, but they gained 13.
compared to total hire and separation?
Well, they hired, well, when I look at you guys, you tell me I want minority numbers higher, so I looked at that. I didn't look at total overall, but it's up to you guys. I can just, fight for them.
I guess my question would be, I mean, certainly willing to entertain a friendly amendment, but what different would we do?
Well, no, again, I'm good with the motion on that. I was just raising that comment,
Yeah,
I mean,
that especially with it being remote, there's not a geographic.
also, when I look at their population, there's 1% Black, 5% Asian, and 3% and 6%. Those are not large numbers. And again, where they're located versus the workforce pool, those are challenges.
But at least a portion of their jobs are remote, because I found some old job listings, so that provides allowance.
You did a little more digging than I did. That's okay.
and, I mean, Garden City, New York is out on Long Island. That, especially for remote people, means that New York City itself is available as workforce. So, yeah, it would be nice to hear more from them when we ask them for what their good faith efforts are, and maybe press upon that in your letter to say that we are looking for that in the future. But yeah. I had not sort of done the, okay, yeah, Garden City and its remote work calculation, so.
My discussion is concluded.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to second, unless there is further discussion. Or second again.
I think you
I already
You
did
already
second,
seconded.
yes.
So I will go through the motion because your amendments we discussed and are now no longer in
So-
effect. But we do need to discuss the KPCS consulting.
Right,
So I
'cause
will
I left
remove
them out of
Right,
the-
I will
Okay.
leave them out of this motion and then we can discuss them separately? Yeah. Okay, so, motion on the table. Bradford Systems, 2 years. Brower and Rosso, 1 year with good faith efforts. Carlson, 2 years. Core Construction, 2 years. Davis Hoke, 2 years. Gewalt Hamilton Associates, 2 years. Gilbane Building, 2 years. Golden 5, 2 years. Grunlow Construction, 2 years. Knight and Associates, doing business as MAS Engineering, 2 years. Locality Media, doing business as First Due, 1 year with good faith efforts plan, focusing on remote option work. O'Shea Builders, 1 year with good faith efforts. Petrie Kuhn, 1 year with good faith efforts. PJ Hoare, 1 year with good faith efforts. RJN Group, 2 years. SB Friedman Development, 2 years. Siemens Industry, 2 years. USIC Locating Services, 1 year with good faith efforts. Okay. Do a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we now will move on, I believe, to discussing the one that was not included in the motion, KPCS Consulting.
So my inclination is to ask city legal and the department involved whether they are comfortable with us not saying anything. Because just by dint of the ordinance, by us saying that they're good for 2 years is us basically claiming we've reviewed the statistics and they look fine. And there are not enough statistics for us to review. So I'd like to push back on this and say, let's not. If the department or legal want to come down and explain to us why we should really approve this anyway, then we do it. But it just seems iffy to me.
Any concerns with that process, that path forward?
Carla, do you have any concerns with that path forward? I know you have concerns with that path forward. How concerned are you with that path forward?
At this point, I'm not sure. I would have to go back to the staff and to see what impacts that would have.
I was looking at what their contract was for. It's for Azure, Microsoft Azure, so probably need it.
Probably, the name usually, the name of the staff usually tells me how impactful it will be, because that's typically our IT.
So, again, by our not approving it, I think what we're saying is someone else on staff has to make an exception to policy to deal with this. And either it's going to be us making the exception and saying we approve this without knowing, or it's going to be staff making an exception saying we're going to approve this contract without buy-in from the commission. And I like the second one better.
I will ask. That's all I can do. If we need a special meeting, is there a possibility of a provision based upon?
So the scenario we're imagining is city staff says, we're not going to do this contract, and we need to do this contract. We're not going to do this contract unless the commission approves it. Please approve it. And is the question then, am I or others likely to vote yes, or 2 years, or even 6 months with some sort of other plan or some additional information?
Well, we started this with, we've never said no.
Right.
And so I'm game for, I will do whatever the commission chooses. If you guys say we're going to punt this back, I will take it back and I will have those conversations. But I was just reminding the board that you said you've never done it, so here's a first.
And I am not suggesting that we say to city staff, we disapprove of this. We say that this is not conforming. I'm saying that we as a commission say, we don't know whether this is conforming or not. We cannot make a call on this. But I mean, this is one where I feel like I don't want to be on the legal hook without someone explaining to me how it is I justify a vote for, yes, this looks like they're conforming to workforce requirements when we haven't seen all of the data. I mean, if someone else wants to make a motion, I may vote no or abstain, but my feeling here is we shouldn't approve this.
Do we have an idea of timeline, sense of urgency?
Not really, but I believe June 30 might be a timeline.
Makes sense, yeah.
And so if you go back and you do want approval, you're going to want to set up a meeting, and then we have to figure that out within probably the next week or so.
Yes.
Is one of your concerns that everyone else, all of 23 others, were able to provide that information?
Everyone else in the history of us doing this, for as long as I remember, has always provided the data. This is the first time we've ever had an application where they said, nope, can't provide those numbers.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do about that with our procedures.
I do think it's worth checking with city legal, regardless of what we decide tonight, because I will say California has instituted new privacy laws. Other states are going the same way. We may be running into this more and more. This is not going to be out of the norm.
Which may mean that we need to rewrite our procedures for dealing with 2-119 issues in general, which may be a different kind of discussion than this one.
And what is, I don't understand what Azure is
It's a software package.
to do.
A lot of different things. It's really for the IT background. It's developers.
Mhm.
They do. I know very little about it. I know enough to be really dangerous.
They're good. I believe it's a new site because the application just says that it's services to configure and test a new site.
New website. Yeah.
Yeah, so Azure is basically cloud computing stuff for programmers.
And is this a new contract, or is, so they've applied,
See, yeah, this is new.
They ever reported any of this data to the state of California?
Well, I think what Julie was saying is that because they are under the parent company, they're not allowed to do that.
It's not that they're not allowed. I would, well, I don't know. I guess I can't speak to that, the legality of that. The regulation would make it very prohibitive for them to collect that. They would be, for lack of a better word, safer not collecting that information than having it and sharing it inadvertently, because there are pretty significant consequences if you share it and you're not supposed to under GDPR. As in, anyone can come to you and say, you have my information from 12 years ago. You have to go back in every single file, every network, every backup, and erase that. I want you to erase that. So I think in this case, they're opting not to collect it to begin with.
Thank you for the clarity.
I really wish I didn't know about it. So does anyone want to make any sort of motion, or are we tabling this for further discussion with city legal?
so what would the specific question to city legal look like?
So I'm, I think, asking two things. One is city staff willing to go forward with a contract without our approval? And two is, if they are not, is it appropriate, given the wording of the ordinance and our procedures, for us to approve it at all?
I was just thinking the unfortunate is that our procedures don't allow for international rules, and we're going to be seeing a lot of that.
But as Julie said, it might be the case that we may even see this domestically, that some states may decide they're not going to do this, and I can think of assorted reasons that states might make laws to do that, and then we're going to be in the same pickle. I don't know that it's the international effect is the important bit. It's the, what do we do if they say we are legally precluded from providing this information to you in the future? Our current procedures and the ordinance itself, I think, would cause issues there. And that may mean going to city council and saying we need to update the ordinance. It may just be that we need to update our procedure in some way, that we have to ask for alternative information from them. But if the city really needs our approval on this, I'd like to know what that approval's got to look like.
Logistical question, should a special meeting be required? As we are having a change in commissioners, if we were to hold a special meeting next week, who and how many would be necessary?
Quorum is 4, so we would have to have 4 minimum.
I will tell you, next week will be challenging.
Because in the fiscal year,
And I have half my staff out and the other two that support me out also, so. It will be challenging. I can make it. Challenging. Yeah, yeah,
be the only thing on the.
yes, yes. I mean, I will accommodate for that, yes.
I will be out of town, so I don't know, you don't have any remote call-in, Zoom in?
I was gonna say
There have to
has
be four people
in the-
present.
Yes,
four
there have to be
present for
4
the
in
calls.
chambers.
Yeah.
Mhm. That we've tried to do before, so. So what I'm hearing is nobody is comfortable putting forward a motion at this time because of the unknowns, because of our ordinance and our process. So I think that the path forward is Carla having further discussions with city legal or others.
There is an
That's-
option to allow for 6 months, right?
Yeah, but, I mean, we use 6 months when we say they've provided all they're gonna provide, we'd like to see progress and them to develop some sort of good faith effort program or something like that. We've never done it for, we're missing the data. When we're missing the data, we normally go back and say, we're not gonna take a vote on this until we get more data. Now, in this particular case, we know what the answer is gonna be, which is, you're not getting any more data. But, yeah, I mean, we've never approved for 6 months without hope of, like, there is gonna be a good faith effort plan and they're gonna go forward with that. We don't know what we're dealing with here.
But I think the 6 months would give opportunity to develop what this is going to look like moving forward, because, you know, my biggest concern is it will halt, it'll have a trickle down, a domino effect. So I'm hoping that if we could do at least the 6 months, to give us an opportunity to look at what are we looking at? What are the legal aspects of it? If it comes back that in 6 months that, we'll have a whole nother issue. But I'm just hoping for the least amount of disruption as possible for the city.
I guess my fear is we approve for 6 months, and then we decide that, no, approval with no statistics is a violation of our current rules or the ordinance. Now we disapprove. Now we actively have to withdraw that approval. And that becomes, oh, by the way, city attorney, we're saying that there's a breach of contract here that you just made a month ago. Yeah.
Trying to read the tea leaves next week. So you're just basically wanting to know if the city will move forward without the certification of the board. And if so, is that okay? That would be okay with you all. If they're not okay with it, then we'll have to come up with a special meeting to try to get approval or to try to get more information, which we recognize we're probably not going to get a whole lot more, if any.
I was gonna just sharing with the council, with the city, that we are not rejecting, we are not denying, just, yeah.
You need more information, and I
Well,
understand
and,
that.
yeah, just, having us on the record saying, it's not that we're saying no, we just,
We need
we
legal
have nothing to
advice.
move on, yeah.
We need legal advice.
But
And I
if
get that.
somebody in the city, I guess I'm more comfortable if somebody at the higher level in the city says, yes, we're comfortable moving forward with this contract. Of course, then it may need to revisit our procedures at that point. But somebody else has said, yes, we're moving forward with this.
So this is the thing, is even if the city says, we're comfortable moving forward with the contract without you guys doing the pre-approval process, great. We still have to deal with the issue that we've got now, officially, this is a contract we have to review. And we are currently in our current procedures unable. If the city's willing to move forward in the next week and say, we'll make the contract and then we'll work with the commission to figure out how their procedures go forward in these weird cases, great, we'll do that. We don't have to do anything until we figure that out. if the city's not willing to move forward, I would really, even if they say, nope, we want you to have this special meeting next week, and we are able to arrange it, I'd want to hear from city legal what we're on the hook for, right? We're approving something that by our procedures would not be approved.
Legal's gone.
And legal's gone. So, I mean, if I were in your shoes, I would say to the city staff person in charge, get approval from the mayor to make an exception to policy for this particular thing, that we're gonna go ahead with the contract, because city legal, who is currently on vacation, is going to have to work with the commission to come up with a new procedure. And I think that's the best outcome.
I'm going to add one more thing if we're looking at new procedure, because I do believe that the statistics need to be updated to address more options, because I'm thinking we have many that do not necessarily identify as male or female that will be entering the workforce. And so how many of those maybe aren't being captured? So
Well, I believe you did.
In the revised form from March, it does have a place where the folks that are filling out that Table A can make comments for how folks, yes.
I think moving forward, it would be, I guess it would almost be nice to see, and not that they need to report it, but if somebody, if they have 10 employees and 3 are non-binary, it'd be good to see that that's the case, as opposed to just having some comments, but that's just.
Does that fall under what official EEO demographic data includes, though? I agree, it would be nice.
Just trying to think ahead, so. Okay, so it sounds like our current path is further discussion with city staff and wait to hear back. Okay.
I will let everybody know what I find out,
Okay.
as soon as I find out.
Thank you. Putting you in a tenuous position, I know.
No, it's okay.
Okay. All right, so if we are finished with EEO workforce statistics, we'll move on to leadership elections. And I just want to preface that with, my recent announcement that this is my last meeting, as I did not renew my commission. And Asako Kanazi-Leggett is stepping down due to external reasons after next month. Maybe tabling this topic for next month's meeting when people have had more time to think about it and come to some conclusions.
That sounds fine with me. Do we, we are gonna be down to 4 exactly? When, there is hope of more people being added to the commission. Excellent. Wait for the
Okay.
report of staff.
So we will move new business to next month's agenda on the leadership election specifically. And now to the officer for their report.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Formal complaints, we did have one source of income complaint, and that was formally withdrawn with a conciliation agreement. It's not a conciliation agreement where they've come to some mutual, it would have been a no probable, but the respondent is willing to work with the person to make sure that they're okay. So we developed a new kind of agreement that they're saying, yes, we promise we'll help her. And so that, I just had them both sign it so that if something went awry, we could say, well, you promised you would help. But it's a conciliation sort of agreement, but not really, because there was no cause for so she withdrew it, and they're gonna work with her. Informal complaints, there was one for criminal background check, no jurisdiction, because it was a HUD subsidized property, and I don't have any jurisdiction over those to bring forth complaints. And then another one was employment. There's a business address issue, and so I'm working with the legal department here to determine whether or not we have jurisdiction over that, because there's an address in another city, and then there's the appointment here and with office space, and so we're trying to determine, does that mean that that business is located in Urbana, if their mailing address is located somewhere else? And so more information is coming on that. The city has received 2 applications for the HRC. They're in the process, and for me, I've successfully completed the EEO Investigator Refresher course. I passed. Participated in an ADA Symposium virtual conference. The sessions that I attended, they count towards credits needed for the ADA Coordinator certification, so I will be I'm actively pursuing that because I was identified as the ADA Coordinator here, so I'm making sure I'm certified. Working with the New American Welcome Centers, Community and Civic Engagement, Communities of Practice team, we are working on updating some resources and then outreach for those resources, making sure our immigrant community has access and knows about all the different resources that are available to them. And then we're also looking at doing, this is a long-term goal of the group, is to develop a Government 101 so that our new immigrants, our new residents will be able to get engaged with city government. And then just a reminder to please volunteer for the City of Urbana booths. I believe we're going to have 4 or 5 this year. For Jetty Roads Day, that is June 24, which is this coming Saturday in King Park. And I'll be continuing outreach at that event too. But I was very pleased that 2 applications came in, and if you don't mind, I can say Anne recruited one of them.
I did.
So thank you so much for that. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you. All right. Any announcements before I? Okay, so our next scheduled meeting is Tuesday, July 11th, 5:30 p.m. August meeting is Tuesday, August 15th, also at 5:30. And if there are no other announcements?
I was just going to thank our outgoing commissioners.
Thank you. Yes. I will miss all of you, so. Okay. And we will adjourn at 6:28. We are finished. Thank you.
Thank you.